Okay, so here we are back in our program, and I want to talk about assignment statements a little more, but I want to specifically talk about augmented assignment statements. Sometimes it's useful in your code to, for instance, increment the value of a variable, something like that. So let's say I have an integer variable called x, right? And in my code, somewhere in my code, I assign 10 to x. And then later on in my code, I want to add 1 to x, right? So I want to say that x would now be 11, and then maybe later I'm going to add 1 again, and x would be 12. The way you do this is different than in math, and I'm going to write the statement, and then I'm going to explain what the statement means, right? So let's remember how an assignment statement works in Java. An assignment statement in programming languages calculates the value of the right-hand side, and then it takes that value and assigns it back into this left-hand side. So this statement here is going to say, what is x plus 1? So x was 10 before this line, so 10 plus 1 is 11. And then it's going to take that 11 and it's going to assign it into the variable x. So it's going to overwrite the x. So if I print out x, the value of x here, it's going to print out 11 at this point because it took, right, 11. It took the 10 plus 1, which was 11, and reassigned it into x. Now, if I took this line right here and did it again after this, and then printed out x again after I did that, now the value of x would be 12, right, if I run this, right, and it assigns it. Now, let's say I wanted to add 2, right? Same thing. I would say x equals x plus 2, and I could add 2 down here. And now, when I run this, right, it's 12 and 14. Now, the same applies if I were going to multiply. Let's say I were going to multiply by 2, right? And we don't need to do this twice, right? Let's just get rid of this one. Okay. So this is going to take x times 2, which 10 times 2 is 20, and assign it into the variable x. So now when I run this, I get x is 20. Now, this applies for any type of calculation you want to do on the right-hand side. But there are shortcuts for addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division, and even modulus, right? And the shortcut notation, and I'm not saying the shortcut notation is better or worse, but x equals x plus 2 can be rewritten. So let's take these two lines, right? And I'm going to copy them. And we're going to rewrite them using an augmented assignment statement, right? It's a shorthand notation, right? Compound assignment. Okay. So instead of writing x equals x plus 2, I can write x plus equals 2. And what does this do? This line does the exact same thing as this line. This line, the plus equals says whatever the variable is on the left, I'm going to add it to the 2 on the right and then store it back into this variable. It's a shorthand notation for writing x equals x plus 2. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just shorter. So you're going to see people do this a lot because it saves them typing one character, right? And if it can speed up typing one character, they're going to do it. So if I run this program, right, the same output comes, right? This line added 2, and I got 12. This line added 2, and I got 14, right? Now the same applies for multiplication. Let's say I was multiplying. I could write it as x equals x times 2, and down here I could write it as x times equals 2, right? And if I run this code, my shorthand notation for multiplying worked, okay? My recommendation, once again, is consistency. If you don't like this shorthand notation, then use this notation. It's not wrong, right? But if you're going to use this notation all the time. If you're going to use shorthand notation, then use this notation all the time, right? Same for subtraction. Let's say I was going to subtract 2, right? And I could do the same thing by doing minus equals. This statement right here is the same as this statement right here. And if I run the code now, right, the first time it subtracted 2 and got 8, and the second time it subtracted 2 and got 6. Again, this notation works for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulus. So again, decide whether or not you want to use shorthand notation and use it all the time, or decide that you don't want to and don't use it. However, you should be familiar with it, because in most code examples, when you search online, most programmers are going to use this shorthand notation because, again, it saves them typing a character and they consider it quicker.